the Vintage Theater, and you're watching In Focus with Eden Lane. It's true.
Welcome to In Focus with Eden Lane.
Tonight we visit a musical that won Tonys for Best Book, Best Score, and Best Musical. Ave Q is making the regional premiere at the Vintage Theater Company. We sat down with the director and the cast during tech rehearsals, and when we arrived, they were just finishing a run-through.
Try having people stopping you to ask you, what you talking about, Willis? It gets old.
It sucks to be you on Avenue Q.
Sucks to be me.
On Avenue Q.
Sucks to be you.
On Avenue Q.
Sucks to be us,
but not when we're together. We're together here on Avenue Q. We live on Avenue Q. Our friends do too. Till our dreams come true. We live on Avenue Q.
This is real life.
We live on Avenue Q. You're gonna love it. We live on Avenue Q.
Here's your keys.
Welcome to Avenue Q.
While the cast was on a break, I sat down with the director of Avenue Q, Bernie Cardell. Bernie, the last time we got to actually see you, we didn't get to even talk to you then, was here at the Vintage Theater.
That's right.
For Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. And now you're the director of the regional premiere of this production of Avenue Q. How did that happen?
It's a funny story because I was supposed to be taking a break. I've been going for the last 6 or 7 years.
Directing a musical is now what we'd call taking a break.
Well, it's not what I would call taking a break either. I was supposed to have this entire fall off, September through December, which I haven't done in 6 or 7 years. And but Craig called me and he says, we've just gotten, they weren't going to do Avenue Q, they had another show scheduled, and he says, we've just gotten the rights to Avenue Q. Do you want to direct it? And it was just a momentary pause before I said yes.
You didn't have to check with anybody. Can I change my vacation?
Well, and I didn't have to check my schedule because it was open. So of course I said yes. I mean, who would say no to that?
What is it about this show that made you decide to forego your hiatus?
Well, I first saw the show in New York in 2004 when it
Before Broadway?
When it had opened on Broadway, and of course nobody was talking about it yet because nobody had heard of it. And I was like, "What is this show with puppets? It's a puppet show. Is it for kids? What is it?" And we went to go see it, and I have not laughed as hard in 2 hours ever. And we were in the last possible seat you could be in, and the show just washes over you because it's one thing after another, one unexpected thing after another, one joke that you didn't expect, one surprise. A puppet does this. Puppets are funny. Puppets are so funny, and it's that thing of that they were talking about having to kind of overdo it a little bit, having to overdo it, and people will watch that, and it'll be funny. And if a human actor did it, it wouldn't be funny.
It also gives them license to be fairly outrageous.
It does. It does. You know, when a puppet says a bad word or a more colorful lyric, or they're given a little more license from the audience. That's what I notice. You know, and the show has those obvious comparisons to Sesame Street, and so I think people
Intentionally so,
and so there's a sweet innocence to it, to a puppet, especially when you have puppets interacting with adults, just like they had on Sesame Street. So the audience does give them more license to take it a little bit further.
You talked about how you felt the show reach out to you all the way in the back of that theater on Broadway, but it's going to be right in your face in this intimate space.
Which I think is even better.
Tell me how that's changing how you direct the show.
Well, in an intimate space like the Vintage, which I love working in this space. I love it, as an actor and as a director. But in an intimate space, you're more subtle. So the puppets are more outrageous. The human actors have to be more subtle. It's almost it's very similar to doing film work. You know, the arch of an eyebrow makes a huge difference in a space like this, but at the Buell Theater, you have to have more makeup, you have to have, you know, all sorts of more things to convey that same thought.
How did you get the puppets? I mean, it's not like you can go to the toy store and buy these characters.
Well, we are very lucky in Denver to have Corey Gilstrap, who is a nationally known puppet creator and puppet master, and we contacted him. That was the first call we made after they got the rights to do the show. They called Corey because he's very well known and he's very, very good. And he agreed to create the set of puppets for the show, which is somewhere, I think, in the neighborhood of 35 total puppets.
Wow.
Because you don't do costume changes with puppets. You have a new puppet with a new costume.
Wow.
Yeah.
So every character might have 4, 5, 6 or more
Oh,
iterations.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Keith, who plays Princeton, has 9 different puppets for the show.
Since we got to meet some of these puppets
Yes.
up close, we can see how meticulously
The
they're
detail.
built.
Yes.
And they have to be because the audience is so close.
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. Corey has been working on them since July. He started on them right away, right when we first started, making the plans for this show.
What was casting like?
Casting was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of people turn out. We had about close to 100 actors come out and audition for the show. And at the callbacks, I think my favorite part of the callback process was that I had asked the actors to bring a puppet, to create a puppet. So we had people who had, brown paper lunch bags that they created at home, because I had asked them not to spend a lot of money creating the puppet.
Sure.
I didn't want somebody to not be cast and then spend $100 on a puppet. So we had lunch bags. Somebody had fashioned Tupperware and a kitchen sponge. And Keith, of course, who plays Princeton, already had his own Ave Q style puppet, so he brought that in, of course. People had stuffed animals. We had a rubber shark doing readings from the script, So it was a great deal of fun. And then casting the show was actually pretty difficult because we could have gone any number of ways in casting the show.
Because so many actors in Colorado wanted to be in the first regional production.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. And there are a number of productions coming up, next year sometime.
There's something about being first.
There is something about being the first, yeah. I mean, nobody can ever take that away from you, first of all. And people in the general public that want to see the show, they want to see the first production. Vintage is doing Ave Q. Let's go see Ave Q, which is one of the reasons that we're running it for 9 weekends, which is the
That's
longest.
An incredibly long run
It is.
for the Vintage, but even for local theater in Colorado.
Yeah.
Many of them don't have anywhere near that run unless it's dinner theater.
That's correct. Yeah, most theaters, I think the longest run I had been a part of before this was 6 weekends. And 9 weekends, I think, in talking to Craig and Debbie here at Vintage, 9 weekends because it's the regional premiere. 9 weekends because it's Ave Q. 9 weekends because it's this cast doing the regional premiere of Ave Q. There's just so many great elements coming together. We have a wonderful design team, putting together our sound and our lights and our set, and Corey, of course, with these puppets and they're just amazing. They're incredible.
And you were very gracious to allow us access while you're in the middle of this work. Many artists don't want you to see how things are made. I really appreciate and respect that.
By all means, yeah, and you're very welcome. And I personally love watching things in progress. Like, I want to see the set that's not painted yet, so that when I come and see the show, I'm like, I feel like I'm on the inside. I'm getting the behind the scenes, look at it.
And we know you're going to have live music as you did for Funny Thing Happened the way
yes.
it performed.
Yeah, people are quite amazed. They're like, you're at the Vintage Theater, which is this tiny stage anyway, and you're going to have a live band. Other theaters that are several times the size do not have a live band. But yeah, we will have a live 3-piece band. And we have a wonderful music director, Marcia Whitaker. She's been working with the cast very diligently because the music, although a lot of fun, there's a lot of... it's difficult music.
It's real musical theater.
It's real musical theater. It's legit musical theater, definitely.
One of my favorite questions when talking about any production is about what's the message, what does it mean? But when we look at a show like Ave Q, it's so much fun. That's so easy for it to be the only focus, the comedy, the production values. Tell me, what does Ave Q mean? What's its message?
It's a two-part answer. One thing that I always tell this cast is that there's no greater example of the joy of living than being in a musical comedy. And if they can project that feeling out to the audience, it will always be a success.
I love that.
Yeah, it's something that I just try to live by in directing and acting.
Well, I appreciate your work and sharing it with us tonight, and I can't wait to talk to the cast. For the first part of my visit with the cast, the actors generously agreed to bring their puppets to let us meet all of the characters.
We're being held here against our will.
We said pizza.
Send beer.
I realize that you are in the middle of really finishing up all of your rehearsals and your technical building your sets and all of that. I really appreciate you inviting us here to come and meet all of you as you make the regional premiere of this show. I know that you two have sort of a love story that goes on in this show. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And do you two have a love story in this show?
We're just really good friends.
Oh, I
Okay,
see.
see, it's complicated.
It's complicated.
It's nice.
Is it also complicated for the bears and the lady in the back?
We're complicated individuals.
I'm just a crabby old, crabby and old.
Crabby at all. Okay, well, we won't stress you too much, but I do know that we have some humans in the show as well, and we have a married couple that are sitting very far apart.
I know Him. He know how to job.
What is it like for the human actors who are not operating any other characters to work in this environment? What is it like for you?
I think it's we have to keep telling ourselves to talk to the puppets and not to the people handling the puppets.
Really?
I totally catch myself looking at Keith, who's a really good friend of mine, and I'll just want to look at his face and like puppet, focus on the puppet.
Because you're cute.
Well, and for me, the everybody that that operates a puppet, the puppets are so very human in their reactions to things. So it actually is really easy for me to interact
I'm
with
in
the
that
puppet.
same position. When
They're so very
I'm
human.
looking at these actors.
Yeah.
I'm seeing these actors.
I mean, I still see it, but it's their facial expressions are happening too because they're doing the same expressions as their puppets.
Oh.
So I sometimes get distracted by both, and I catch myself looking at them too for their reaction too, and the puppet, and I have to make sure I'm focused because the face is just as expressive. But
And you're also the only actor who's playing someone that we all know before we get to the theater.
yes,
What is that like for you?
it's been a lovely jaunt down YouTube trying to figure out exactly how to play him, especially being a woman playing a man. I mean, it's always, most videos I've ever seen of Ave Q has been played by a woman, but it's interesting. I'm still discovering all those little nuances and stuff, but he's pretty sassy, so.
I'm delighted that we had a chance to meet the entire cast, including our more colorful members of the cast and more furry members of the cast.
Thank you.
That's appropriate.
And I know that you've been working hard all evening, so I'll thank you for joining us, and I'll talk to just the human actors now.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
Hi, thanks.
Why do you
Hi,
need
Nita
a spots? Right. Come on, Kate, let's go have sex.
The spirited cast put away their fantastic puppets so we could have a chance to get to know them a little better. It was really great of you to take the time to let us meet the puppets that you play, the characters that you play. What is it like as an actor to have to work your performance not with just your physicality, but through an implement like a puppet? What is that like for you?
Awesome.
In what way?
It's just so expressive. It's so fun to find little tricks and little things like the puppet beat and the bounce and things like that. What about
And
you
something
guys?
an actor would never do is sort of indicating that you're about to do something like the puppet would do.
Right, it's kind of counterintuitive that way. There's this idea of sort of, in theater we call it schmacting, sort of this overacting where someone's always indicating and they're always doing this thing with a thing. But with a puppet, that's kind of exactly what we're being told is what we need to do because they don't have all the subtleties of the facial muscles, so the over-indicating is what we want.
But we can
So-
see your faces too. That's very unique in this kind of production that we see the puppeteer and your performance at the same time.
It's
Is
one of
that
the things I hope goes away after like 10 minutes. They stop watching me and they start just focusing on the puppet.
You know, I've seen this production elsewhere a few times, and For me, I, as an audience member, sort of go back and forth between watching the puppet and watching the actor who's operating the puppet. Do you think that's probably how it's intended, or do you think that's just a casualty of the work? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that it's from my observation working with the puppets, the facial expressions, that Anna pointed out that all of you guys do so wonderfully informs what's happening with the puppet as well. So it sort of enhances that experience too. But I have to admit that when I've seen it previously, I probably spend 80% of my time on the puppet and maybe 20% on the actor behind the puppet, because I do get lost in that reality.
There's a moment in particular every time I've seen this show that I do avert my eyes from the puppets.
Oh, let
and
me
only
guess.
look at the actors.
Let me guess.
And I think it's a scene that you two have together.
What's she talking about?
I don't know.
Oh, wait, when I make sweet puppet love to you.
What is it like to have a love scene with a puppet on your hand?
Oh my god, it's funny.
My dad is not coming to the show.
Would you let your dad see you as an actor in a regular play without a puppet if you had a love scene?
I would leave that up to him.
But this one you've decided he can't come to.
Well, that was his decision. But, it's something else. It's something else.
That really lets us remind the audience that, of course, we want everyone to come and see, but this is not for children.
Oh no! Oh no!
No.
Unless you want to have
you're
some
very
serious
liberal
conversations. Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
Yes.
What age do you think that the Vintage Theater is recommending for this show, or what would you recommend as an artist? 14.
Yeah.
It depends on the child.
Depends on
Yeah,
the child,
really.
depends on the parents. I think also if the parents are willing to come with their kids
Just
and be
like
willing to
14.
answer the questions.
Yeah,
They're going to come with it. I mean, it's funny, and is some nuances that they may not even catch on to. Depends
Because
on
we deal
the
with
age.
racism, we deal with
Porn.
porn.
Yeah.
There is puppet nudity.
There's puppet nudity. We deal with.
I mean, there's very colorful language
Yes.
throughout
Yes,
the
there
whole
is.
thing, and I don't mean red, blue, green.
How would you describe your character's relationship to his wife, Eric?
Scared.
No, not to the actor, to your wife.
Scared.
When you're describing this show, I think of it as a real musical comedy. I don't think of it as an adult version of Sesame Street, the way some people describe it. To me, it's just real, regular musical comedy theater. But I think that doesn't really get at all the layers. And you have to engage your performance not just in the Bad Idea Bears, but you have to participate with other actors.
Right.
How does that work?
Well, the idea of a group mind really helps the performance. I mean,
What does that mean, a group mind?
Well, you sort of have to, be in tune with the other person that you're puppeteering with to make a real life character come to life. Otherwise, it won't look real on stage. If I'm doing my own gesturing and he's doing his own gesturing, it's not going to look like one puppet, one character doing his own action. You really have to be in tune with the other person.
It would be like a scene from Evil Dead.
Exactly.
It's a whole different level of choreography that's happening throughout the entire production.
Oh, definitively.
Oh, yeah.
If you're given the chance to describe to someone what the importance of this regional premiere of a locally produced version of Avenue Q means, what would you say?
It's deep.
I didn't think anybody would ever do it because of the puppets. I'm so excited.
It's taking it to a new level. I think a lot of theaters now are, not that the economy's extremely better, but theaters are now starting to take risks again and bringing in, productions that are a little bit more risque or even just a little bit more thought-provoking. And I think that's exciting. And this one will make them laugh, but it'll also make them go home and think and look at their world a little bit differently and enjoy life even a little bit better.
I think they won't stop talking about it on the car ride home, even if they live in Boulder. I drive all the way. They'll talk about it all the way,
They
right?
might laugh all the way.
That
They
would be
might laugh
nice.
through the theater and go home and not be able to sleep. Show though, because I think it can you'll have things running through your mind.
Does that mean they have to go for a cocktail with the cast afterwards?
Yes.
Always by
As long as they're buying.
As long as they're fine.
Yes.
Now, the Vintage Theater has built a reputation on being a daring, sort of ambitious company. Is this the first time that you're working at the Vintage Theater?
No, I got naked on their stages just on the last show. Love, Valor, Compassion.
So you were in Love, Valor, Compassion.
Yeah.
I did Romeo and Juliet.
This is my vintage debut.
This is your vintage debut. What does that feel like to join the lineage, if I'm not using too large a word for such a small theater, of the kind of work that they've been doing lately?
It's really exciting because I am blessed to know a lot of people in the acting community, and so I've seen a lot of performances in this space, and I've seen some really amazing work done in this space. And so to think that I, might be part of that heritage and that tradition, and the pictures that are around the theater represent, a lot of that. And I walk around during rehearsal, and I'm like, wow, that's so great. Oh, I saw that show, and it was wonderful. And so it's really neat to be part of that fraternity of people.
Anybody else making their vintage debut? 3 more. What do you feel about joining this sort of illustrious list of wonderful productions that are so ambitious here in this small theater that are so vital to the community of Colorado?
I'm thrilled to have conned them into hiring me.
Right?
Which is pretty awesome. I mean, it is the Colorado debut of Ave Q. It's no small thing. Everyone would want to get their hands on the show. It's awesome. So to get my fingers into it the first time it's a huge coup.
Was there a pun in there to get your fingers?
Oh,
Yeah.
clever.
And you, ma'am?
I completely agree. I think that it's just a blessing. I mean, it was whispered around last year. It was like, they're doing Ave Q, and everybody was so excited. And people were not auditioning for stuff, so they could audition for this. And I think we all feel so blessed to be able to do this. And all of these roles are dream roles for us. I mean, these are things that have been, and for what I realized when I auditioned for this show is that most of the shows I've done and the parts I've had, I didn't know the roles as well as I know this role or I know this show. This is our
it's all that
generation
YouTube
show.
research.
This is like, but it is a lot of, but this is a lot of like my generation's show. A lot of people, our music director said that to us. She said, this is your generation's show. And you guys, this is, she's like, every generation has something that stands out. And this is really huge for you. So it's exciting.
You had to make it an age issue, didn't you?
Hey, you know what? I think that's with every musical theater.
And you, how do you feel about making your debut and adding yourself to this?
I love it because I'm obsessed with Ave Q. It's one of my favorite musicals ever. But in addition to that, I've seen so many great productions here at Vintage that when I saw that they were doing it, I knew they would do it well.
I'd love for you to tell me in just a couple of words what Ave Q means, or what is the message of Ave Q?
I think it's really about finding your way in the world and learning who you are.
I think it's about being happy with yourself.
I think a lot of this is the relationships. It's who you spend your life with, not where you spend your life, but who you spend it with.
I can't add anything. They actually stole mine. It is about. I mean, we have a song called "Purpose" in the show. That is a very focal theme in it.
I would say noticing your inner child and how silly you can actually be.
After all of the stresses that we have in life, everything is only for now.
Only for now.
Yep.
That's a song cue.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. Cut to the underscoring.
I think it highlights the innocent ideals that we have growing up as children that are really cultivated by shows such as Sesame Street, but then there are all these adult issues that are thrown on top of things when you do grow up, and it's about those moments that you really think, oh, this is what it's like to be an adult, the good and the bad.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel the same way, kind of echoing that. I think it's kind of about honoring your own journey. Just wherever you are, it's the right path to where you're headed, wherever that is.
It's funny is that all sounds so beautiful and so heartfelt, but it's all underlined with the hilarious material that you get to present. And so you should get out of your apartment or get out of your house and come to the Vintage Theater and make sure you see Ave Q. It's here through the holidays. So when you're tired of everything else for the holidays, visit their website and get multiple tickets to see the Vintage Theater production of Ave Q. I had to get a song cue in there too. We returned a few days later during opening weekend. Here's a peek at the finished product of Avenue Q at the Vintage Theater.
Yo, Gary! Oh my God, it's Gary Coleman.
Yes, I am.
Here's your keys. Welcome to Avenue Q.
Avenue Q is playing now through January 8th at the Vintage Theater. Visit their webpage to get more information. You don't want to miss the regional premiere of this hilarious musical.
That's all for this edition. Remember to join us on Facebook and Twitter. With all that Colorado has to offer, we're here to help you keep it in focus. Thanks for watching. Good night.